So it's been a combination of lots of work with the Health Forum and the online work I'm doing, but also lots of really joyful moments because we have been, my husband and I, we've been living in a caravan for the last 18 months.
Wow.
And it was a bit of a bucket list life dream of mine to travel around the South Island and really, really explore all the nooks and crannies. So we did that, and we're back home now. We moved back into our house about 3 months ago, and also loving that. You know, after the caravan was wonderful, it was what we wanted, and we had a fantastic time, met incredible people, freedom people all around the South Island. But, you know, it's not difficult to feel the blessings of being in a house. Like I've got my own office. We were squashed up on a
Yeah.
little caravan table with my husband working and at my working back-to-back computers. So yeah, next stop on the personal life is renovating because we've got an older home and we're going to start doing it up now. So that's on the personal side. And the whole time we were in the caravan, we had a life rhythm. We decided, you know, we've waited so long to do this trip of a lifetime that we wanted to do. So we're going to have work-life balance. So we had kind of relationship rules that we'd get up early, we'd start work at 7 and we'd be finished by 1. And then we'd spend the afternoon, you know, in community with people or traveling around looking at the beautiful South Island. So that's what we did while we were away. Now that I'm back home, that's kind of gone a little bit out the window and I'm back to an unstructured day where it just gets eaten up by, you know, working. So I'm trying to
Yeah.
get some balance back again and taking more personal time. Yeah, so I mean, the last year has just been, there's really no just about it. It's huge, but the last year has been a continuation of the work I've been doing since 2021, the start of 2021 in New Zealand. And I keep thinking there'll be an organic end point. I keep thinking one day I'll wake up and I'll think, well, I think this task is done. You know, this calling is over and this task is done, but I can't see where that organic endpoint is because the need is just so enormous, and the lack of awareness still in New Zealand society and globally is immense. Even though more and more people are realizing that what we've lived through is unprecedented, and so much of it not based on scientific rigor and data and scientific precedent, even though so many people are not aware of that, more and more people are waking up to it every day. And I mean, this is my calling. My life up to now has prepared me in many different ways for this to be my calling. And, you know, I'm older. I'm 63. I've lost friends, not through the injections, but along the way, I've lost friends around this age. So I'm aware, you know, I'm at that age where life doesn't just stretch indefinitely in front of me. I'm aware that it's finite. And I've probably never, ever been so aware of that as this last 3 years doing this work, because my life is just filled with conversations with people, reports sent to us, and interaction with social media posts where people are sharing about sudden unexpected deaths in people much younger than myself. So I'm more than ever aware of the finiteness and the instability and the unpredictability of life and existence itself. Whoa, that was a big answer for, so what have you been up to this year?
Yeah. Yeah.
Press the
No,
go button and I go.
that's the one. So how did you get into this work? How did you founded Health Forum New Zealand? What was the idea? What's your background? What's your credibility? Tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, sure. Well, I always start out by saying I am not a virologist. I am not an immunologist. I am not a vaccinologist. I'm not a scientist. But the background I have had in my life meant that my interest was very piqued about what was happening. And so I started to look a little more deeply into what was happening. So my background is going way back when I was a teenager. My passion, my strongest subject was English. I was an A student. I was the teacher's pet in my English class. I loved writing. I loved communicating. And so it felt natural for me to move into a profession as a journalist. That's what I wanted to be. This goes back a long way, more than 40 years. Back when journalism was still something I would aspire to be a part of, right? No longer.
Yeah.
And I applied. In New Zealand, we didn't have really very much option. Basically, I had to go do a polytechnic course in Wellington, and I was 18 and I applied for it and I got turned down. They basically said, I needed to go away and mature, become a bit more worldly and mature before they took me into that course. And I was absolutely devastated. But life had different plans for me. And what happened was my second passion was I've always been interested in how people tick, psychology, what makes us who we are, and how humans interact with each other and how we perceive the world. So I thought, right, okay, plan B, I'm going to go do a degree in psychology at Auckland University, which I did, just a bachelor's degree in psychology. And in my last year, so that's a 3-year degree, and in my last year, I became really unwell with a lot of a sort of a syndrome of bizarre symptoms. But really, if you put it all in a catchphrase, it was like a chronic fatigue type, ME, chronic fatigue type scenario. And I knew nothing about self-care, holistic therapies, holistic medicine. I'd been brought up in a family where if we were sick, we went to the doctor. And the doctor was a god, always called Mr. blah, blah, or Mrs. blah, blah. I'm English. That's the model that you grow up with in England. And so I went to the doctor in New Zealand, several doctors, and they tested everything, couldn't find anything wrong with me. And basically their suggestion was that it was, a body-mind thing. In other words, all in my mind. And, divine providence, if you want to call it that. I had a part-time job in a bookstore, and one of the women I worked with had not seen a doctor for over 20 years. She had been cared for by one of New Zealand's founding naturopathic practitioners, a man called David Duggan, who's long since gone now. He was an older man. And she said, why don't you go see my naturopath? And I was like, what's a naturopath? What? So anyway, long story short, I went to see the naturopath. I was put on a program, fasting, cleansing, gut repair, some herbal medicine. And having been sick for almost a year, within 3 months, my health was, just hugely improved, really on the improve. So that changed the trajectory of my life, that experience, because I was well enough to finish my degree. I had been contemplating dropping out of university because I was so unwell. I was well enough to finish my degree. And then I took a gap year where I traveled for a year around Europe. And everywhere I went, I did a Eurail pass, going on trains. And I'd be sitting on trains, just some random person would sit next to me or opposite me, and I'd start talking and they'd be a naturopath. And so we'd talk about what they did, or they'd be an osteopath. I had that happen so many times when I was in Europe. So when I came back after a year, I decided, right, I know what I want to do with my life. I want to train in holistic therapy and natural medicine. So I did that. I did a naturopathic degree first, practiced that for a couple of years, and then had a health problem of my own that responded to acupuncture, traditional Chinese acupuncture. And being the endless student that I am, I thought, wow, imagine if I added that skill to what I already have, And so I went back to college and did a 3-year diploma in traditional Chinese acupuncture. And then from there, I finally started working, and I had a 35-year career in soul practice and a very busy holistic therapies practice as a naturopath and registered Chinese acupuncturist. And I specialized in holistic women's health. So when I started in practice, I was one of very few holistic practitioners who niched their practice. Most people were generalists and would see everybody. And while I still would see everybody, I marketed myself and I trained very specifically in the use of acupuncture and naturopathic medicine for women's health problems. So that career was going along beautifully. And when I had my first baby, Rachel, I took some time off work. I took about maybe 9 months off work. And I found it quite challenging again, I've got to stop using that word, to be a stay-at-home mum. It's a really wonderful, important role in society, but I found the lack of mental stimulation really challenging. And I had a little old-fashioned portable typewriter, like out of the ark, with the keys that fly up, the noisy little, with a leather cover. You're probably too young to even know what I'm talking about. Anyway,
Yeah.
I had one of those at home. And one day I thought to myself, why don't I just write an article and send it to a women's magazine and see if they buy it? Because I wasn't earning any money. And I did just that. And I wrote my first article, 1,000 words. I don't know why I chose the subject, but not the coolest subject in the world. I wrote about thrush or candida, right, which is a women's health problem predominantly. And I sent it to New Zealand Women's Weekly, and they bought it. They bought it and they paid me for it, and I was absolutely stunned. And so I then wrote another one and sent it to them, and they bought it. And thus was born my career as a journalist, an independent freelance health writer. And I had that as a parallel career, very expensive freelance journalism career, writing for newspapers and magazines and journals in New Zealand and Australia. And I did that for about 30 years. So though that background of journalism, investigative health journalism, and having a sound background in an understanding of health and healing, those two things came together to alert me to the unprecedented nature of what was happening with the warp speed development and rollout of the new COVID vaccine technology. And I watched that year of development very closely, and I was very aware, because of the health journalism, I'd researched and written articles for magazines, health magazines, about Gardasil, the HPV vaccine, flu vaccines, and MMR. And so I had an understanding of what the old school technology was, the old school traditional platforms, and more importantly, perhaps, what is involved in actually going from concept to community rollout of a new vaccine product. And I knew that if you could do it in 6 years, it was kind of setting a world record. And more traditionally, it was 10 to 12 years for that to happen. So the fact that we were talking about a supposedly new pathogen, the SARS-CoV-2, with a new protein, the spike protein, and we were talking about having burst onto the world, and exactly 12 months later, we had perfected and thoroughly tested, and had regulated and passed this vaccine. It just was mental to me. I just couldn't see how that was a possibility that had, could happen. So I watched that carefully. And of course, New Zealand, we were about 2 to 3 months behind the rollout of Europe, UK, America. And so I could watch a little bit, several weeks of what was happening there with the rollout as well. And of course, the government pharmacovigilance databases, which are like in New Zealand, we have MedSafe. In Australia, they have the TGA. In America, they have the VAERS, Vaccine Adverse Event Reaction Database. So basically, they're government-held databases which doctors, nurses, pharmacists, and the individual, the recipient of a vaccine, can report to if there's a suspected adverse event. So I was watching all of that, and I started looking at the adverse event databases, and I was really concerned about what I was seeing. And then it was New Zealand's turn, and we started the rollout in February 2021. And we had a system here where from then until now, almost exclusively, we've used the Pfizer mRNA. There were a very small number, under 20,000 AstraZeneca and Novavax used later on in the rollout, but predominantly I think we're up to about 14 million doses now administered in New Zealand to a population of 5 million, total population, 5.1 million. So we've used the Pfizer mRNA, and it was specifically, or particularly, it was the mRNA platforms that I was most concerned about, for reasons we can talk about as we go on.
Yeah.
But so then it was New Zealand's turn, and I learned that it was the Pfizer mRNA that we were going to be using. And the preamble to the launch, the lead up, it was a marketing campaign, right? Let's call it what it was. It was a propaganda campaign and a marketing campaign. It was overwhelming. Every media platform, newspapers, online media, radio, television, just everywhere you looked, it was the one message, and that was safe and effective, that this new product that we were all to take was safe and effective. And so when we launched in New Zealand, I was thinking, oh, that's okay, it's coming, and I'm sure the real experts will stand up, the scientists with the PhDs in science will stand up and they'll use their voices to express some of the concerns that I have, because I can't be the only one, right? That's not possible. And I waited, and absolutely nobody did. There was just silence from doctors, no immunologists, nobody. And as the weeks went by and I became more frustrated with this, and I was following some of the international early voices of concern, Robert Malone started early, Peter McCulloch, I don't remember at what point Peter came in, but fairly early, and I was starting to follow their work. And so I thought one day, I'm just going to set up a platform on Facebook. This was before I knew anything about the lifeblood throttling censorship that was about to evolve on Facebook. So I thought, I'll set up a platform on Facebook, because I'd been on Facebook for 5 years with a beautiful, gentle wisdom and holistic health platform with a very small, about 2,000 followers, but I loved it. I'd post every day, and I'd do lives reading, words of wisdom from different spiritual traditions or from psychotherapy, etc. And I really loved that community. And never once in all those years was I ever censored over anything I posted. So I thought, I'll set up a separate community to start talking about my early concerns about the warp speed rollout and the new technology, the mRNA and the lipid nanoparticles. So I set that up, and I thought maybe maybe I'd get 1,000 followers over the months because, it's not a very cool thing. It wasn't a cool, hip subject to be talking about the way I wanted to talk about it. So what happened was kind of history in the making, really. We lasted 9 months on Facebook. We were a group called the Health Forum NZ. I closed it. I made it a closed group, so it was safer from trolling. So you had to apply to get into the group, and we had a group of 5 incredible moderators who worked so hard and such long hours to keep that a safe space and an abuse-free space and keep the trolls out. So we lasted 9 months, and our group grew to just short of 60,000 members, which in New Zealand is a huge Facebook group.
Wow.
We had 58,000 members. And just before we were deplatformed on the Facebook analytics, I saw that approximately 5,000 of those members were global, and all the others were New Zealanders. So we were very much a New Zealand group. And, really, in many ways, that group took me along for the ride, because what it grew into was something that I had no intention, I had no plan, no strategy for it to become what it became. And so really it morphed, in a sense, through people power, through being sensitive to people's needs and adapting our purpose to serve those needs as best we could. So the needs changed over time. At the beginning, we were a group where, just a small handful to begin with of inquisitive people, such as myself, gathered to ask questions, share resources, talk about some of the early preprint science that was coming out, because, of course, there really wasn't much in the way of peer-reviewed science, because that process is long. So it was a lot of preprint at the beginning specific to, the new vaccines, the Pfizer, etc. So we started as that. And then, New Zealand did its thing. We started with lockdowns, endless lockdowns. People's businesses went to the wall. People's mental health started falling apart. And then a little bit later, we started with employment mandates. And at their peak, we had 40% of all employed New Zealanders were only able to keep their jobs with a double or triple vaccine pass. Some professions had a triple mandate, others had a double mandate. And so that was, it still actually it still chokes me up thinking about it, because I didn't know that was coming. As the months went by, I suspected that could possibly come, but at the outset, I had no idea that was coming. And the societal and personal trauma that came from that, I don't have enough words to describe the trauma. And that's when our group just exploded, because word got around, hey, there's this place on Facebook. It's called the Health Forum NZ, and it's Kiwis, and, it's safe. Everybody cares about each other. It's a compassionate space. It's safe. They won't bully you. You can speak freely. And word just got out. It was like, we're a small country, and it just went like wildfire. So at our peak, we were admitting 400 to 500 new members a day. And so that tiny team of admins was doing their very best to screen every single application, clicking through to their home profile, trying to work out were they a troll, were they genuine. It was just massive. We were working like 14, 15-hour days, 7 days a week to look after that group. So we had all of those people there, deeply traumatized, right? Deeply. They were losing everything. They were losing their homes. They were being faced with the choice of taking, look, let's face it, a still experimental novel injectable on a platform, using a platform, mRNA and lipid nanoparticles, that have never been safely used prior to a global rollout. That technology they've been trying to implement and bring it into mainstream vaccinology for decades unsuccessfully because of the known serious adverse event and death profile. So we had 40% of New Zealanders, including our beautiful children, our teenagers working at Pack and Save and all the other supermarkets and wherever, mandated to take a vaccine with an unknown safety profile, with a long history of harm in terms of the technology that was being used. And you were faced with the choice. Well, you just roll up your sleeve and take it, or you lose everything. You lose your job. Many people were faced with the prospect of losing their homes because they had mortgages, or losing their homes because they couldn't pay the rent. And they had children, or they had babies, or they had elderly, infirm relatives living with them that they were caring for, and they had to keep a roof over their head. So there were just 1,000,001 iterations of unimaginable harm that was the, I don't know, was it unforeseen? Was it the unforeseen fallout of this? How could it not be foreseen? How could you not know this was going to be the impact of a mandate? So they joined us. Then, of course, gradually over the months, the very thing that I had watched happening in the pharmacovigilance databases in the overseas countries before it was our turn, well, that very thing started to happen here in New Zealand. And so many of the people that joined us were harmed by the injectables, by the Pfizer. They had either taken a dose willingly, so they weren't mandated, but they bought into the terror campaign and they genuinely believed this was a good thing, that they were protecting themselves and they believed they were protecting others. So a lot of people were coerced, were misled over the line to taking the injectables by believing, because they were altruistic and they had a social conscience and they believed they were doing it to protect vulnerable people around them. So many of the people that joined the Health Forum NZ as mRNA harmed individuals had taken it willingly, at least the first dose. But we also had many people join us who were mandated and who had taken a first dose and been injured, had a serious adverse event. And of course, the flip side of the mandate system was that we supposedly had a medical exemption system, which we'll come back to because that's a big discussion in itself. But that was supposedly a system where, hey, if you've had a serious adverse event to your first dose, you apply and we give you an exemption, and that's okay. You know, if you're well enough, you can continue with your job, and, you know, we wouldn't mandate that you take the second dose after you were so seriously injured from the first dose. But guess what? That's exactly what happened. So few people who applied for a medical exemption actually received one. A tiny percentage. I've got the OIAs. We've been doing official information applications for 3 years. I've got stacks of OIAs about the medical exemption system, who got passes and who didn't. Even if you were injured with myocarditis or pericarditis, which were the two serious adverse events fully acknowledged by the time mandates came along, even then it was not guaranteed that you would get an exemption. You were given a temporary medical exemption for 6 to 12 weeks to recover from your heart inflammation, and then you were expected to take the next dose. So all of those people joined us, multi-traumatized. They had perhaps not wanted to take dose 1 but were forced over the line by a mandate. Then they were injured by the product. Then they applied for a medical exemption. Then they were declined. And so then they faced the prospect of taking another dose that potentially could kill them. I'm not speaking with hyperbole and drama. This is true, could potentially kill them. Or they said no to the second dose, and then they lost everything anyway. Plus they had a serious vaccine injury to deal with. So those people joined us. I had a psychology degree, only a bachelor's, but I had a psychology degree, and I'd had 35 years effectively practicing as a psychologist, because as a holistic practitioner, you're interested in body, mind, and spirit, right? So somebody comes with a physical ailment, you don't just focus on that. You explore their psychology, their emotional state, and you strive for a holistic understanding of their wellness and which bit of which leg of the stool has fallen off. So I applied a lot of that psychology and that experience in the health forum. And very quickly it became apparent that we were managing and supporting a community of a progressive number, first 10,000, then 20,000, 30,000, up to 60,000 people, predominantly New Zealanders, who were experiencing deep trauma. Some of them, PTSD or complex post-traumatic stress disorder. Thousands of them struggling with very acute anxiety, panic attacks, insomnia, depression, severe depression. Many days I felt completely out of my depth. I was doing what I could. Our team were doing what we could. But every day I was thinking, this is crazy. How come I'm doing this? I live in New Zealand. We've got a public health system. We've got a mental health system. Where are they all? Why am I doing this? I'm not equipped to do this. I'm not funded to do this. So there was no money involved in any of this. I couldn't pay any of the volunteers. And nowhere in the mainstream narrative was there discussion about any of this. Nobody was receiving help, So one day after 9 months, when we were still at the peak of craziness, we were still getting 400, 500 new people a day joining us. So who knows how big that group was ever going to be? Potentially hundreds of thousands of people in that group, I don't know. One morning I got up to post, as I always do every morning, and it was gone. And I thought, what? And I searched and I did all the keywords, didn't come up. Got my husband's laptop, did the same thing, didn't come up. Tried on my phone, didn't come up. Not only did it not come up, it was like every scrap of evidence that we ever existed was gone. There was just nothing, no keywords. It was like, have I dreamed the last 9 months? Have I been in some kind of nightmare and I've just woken up? We're gone. Was it real? That was how good the job was of getting rid of us on Facebook.
Who do you think was behind getting rid of your group on Facebook?
Well, great question. So 2 weeks ago, I sent an OIA, and I will share the results when they come back. I sent an OIA to the Department of Internal Affairs in New Zealand because I came across somebody else's OIA where the Department of Internal Affairs confirmed that they had a direct takedown portal on Facebook. So what that means is that the New Zealand Department of Affairs would, without a shadow of a doubt, have been observing our group, communicating with Facebook about posts they were unhappy with, and either applying pressure to Facebook to remove our community, or they had the takedown portal Did they take us down
Wow.
themselves? So I've asked a number of very, very direct questions, and I've asked for all the correspondence between Department of Internal Affairs or all New Zealand government departments and Facebook, the memos, the communications, etc. So we'll wait and see what happens from that OIA.
Wow. Well, it makes a lot of sense. I think Facebook came out recently saying that they were put under a lot of pressure by the Biden administration to do a lot of things. I wouldn't be surprised if you think about the energy that Jacinda was carrying, the fear that she was using to get everybody in line and deceiving people in this idea of kindness, and then end up with so many people that end up on a Facebook group because they need all the help that they're not getting, and they're pretty much excluded because they want to protect the narrative that this is safe and it will protect everybody else, and this is what we got to do to fight this thing, because if we do it, then this is how we're going to be healthy, we're going to have a better economy. Guess what? We can tell now that that was all a lie, because we don't have a great economy. New Zealand is way at the bottom. Iraq did better with GDP growth in 2024 than New Zealand. Iraq.
That's really saying something, isn't it?
Yeah. I can go on. We can talk for hours on this. But do you think what you're going to get back out of this is something that we can see that either the government had control of Facebook or Facebook was doing something illegal? Do you think this is illegal that you can sue for?
Well, great questions, and that's part of the reason for the OIA. And I do have people encouraging me that I should look at legal action over this. I don't know if I will. I just will start by trying to get a little more truth and clarity about what actually happened to our group, and what that means in terms of our supposed inalienable rights in New Zealand, our human rights, our right to free speech. What are the implications of that? And what are the kindness implications of that, seeing as our group was doing something that the New Zealand government and the public health system was not doing, and that was supporting all of these people in deep trauma and, God forbid, using the word vaccine injury, acknowledging that these people exist and they need help. So, what the human rights and the free speech implication of that is, I don't know. I am fully prepared for the fact that my takedown was, let's say, orchestrated by the New Zealand government. I anticipate that is the outcome, if I get an honest outcome.
Yeah, I think so.
And of course, that's a question mark as well, right? Because my faith and my trust has been remodeled in so many ways in the last 4 years. It's not a given that we get,
It's a good way to say it.
Remodeled.
Yeah. I think we're all on that same boat.
It's something else. So, I knew that our group would go. That wasn't a surprise. In the moment, it was a surprise, like, oh my God, this is the day. They've done it. They've actually done it. But I knew from many warning signs leading up to that we would be gone one day, because the censorship of my voice on Facebook was absolutely merciless. So in my group, and to this day, I do all the research for my posts and I do all the writing. Nobody else posts on my platforms. I have them set so that it's not like a public posting platform. And I do that so that I can keep control of the quality of information that has got my name attached to it. It's my platform. I'm hosting it. So I have always been very careful to, okay, let me rephrase this. There is enough damning evidence pointing to the unprecedented harms from many aspects of the COVID response, but my particular forte, right, is the injectables. There is enough overwhelming science and data pointing to the fact that these products should be off the market right from the word go. I don't need to post, Looney Tune, 1,000 miles down a rabbit hole conspiracy theory stuff. I stick with questioning the narrative, but I try and make the information I share science-based. I share a lot of preprints, I share a lot of peer-reviewed science, I share a lot of information from government-owned and operated pharmacovigilance databases, and I post a lot of the responses to the hundreds of OIAs that we've done. So I share from the horse's mouth. New Zealand government information that they've given me when I ask, I share it. And I do that because it's so easy for people to look at somebody like me and my voice and the work I'm doing and immediately say, what a cooker, what an anti-vax conspiracy theorist, what a nut job. But what I learned early on is that if I share the kind of resources I've just described to you, there is so little pushback. I get so little in the way of trolling and scientists jumping on, to argue with my threads, because it's so much harder to argue against an answer you've got from the New Zealand government through an OIA or through a peer-reviewed paper from, a prestigious university somewhere in the world. How do you argue against those things? And so I'm predominantly left alone by the trolls. And with the exception of dearly beloved Sean Plunkett from the platform, who still, revels in calling me a cooker, most people don't bring that to me. And it's because of the quality of the information that I strive to share on my platform. So we did that in our Facebook group. That was my intention from the word go, to have quality information. But even though that was the case, Facebook repeatedly blocked me, censored me, shut me down so I couldn't speak for, first of all, 24 hours, then 48 hours, then 1 week. And then from 1 week, it went up to 4 weeks. And I had repeated 4-week bans where I would have to research the post, write the post, and one of my admins would have to post because I couldn't post. And so what kind of things were they censoring me about? Well, so many. I remember one of them, I got a 1-month ban for putting up a peer-reviewed clinical paper on the efficacy, on the correlation of suboptimal vitamin D levels and an increased risk of COVID infection, hospitalization, and death. So basically this paper was saying, hey, look at this. As is the case with flu, and we've known this for decades, that people who have got suboptimal or clinical deficiency vitamin D, they're way more vulnerable to catching the flu and to having a poor outcome. Well, surprise, surprise, it turns out that it's exactly the same with COVID, right? No great surprise there. I would have expected that to be the case. So when I posted that paper, I got a 1-month ban from Facebook. And so people might be listening to this and think, what? How does that work? What was that about? Well, let me share what I think the theory is. This is what I think it's about. Because I got the same bans when I posted papers about zinc status, when I posted about using intravenous vitamin C for sepsis, severe COVID related sepsis, and the science around using intravenous vitamin C. I also got a ban. So this is why Facebook was banning me. Around the world, all of the novel injectables for COVID were only given a provisional consent, or in America it's called an emergency use authorization. In New Zealand we call it a provisional consent. So what that means is that's our drug regulator saying we have a high requirement for this product, but there's tons of information missing. We have no long-term safety data. We've got no evidence of safety with people with comorbidities or frail elderly or pregnant or lactating or people with pre-existing autoimmune disease, but we have this high requirement for the product. Therefore, we're going to give it a provisional consent. We're going to let it be used for a provisional period of time, 6 months or 1 year. And during that time, we're going to scrape more and more data from the sponsor, from Pfizer. They're going to provide us with more and more rolling information. So eventually down the track, we can give it a proper authorization, which they did do at the end of 2023 in New Zealand. So one of the provisos with giving a new drug or injectable a emergency use authorization or a provisional consent, one of the provisos is that there must be no pre-existing effective treatment for the condition. So when you post a paper showing that you can prevent serious illness through, for example, supplementing every man, woman and child in New Zealand with vitamin D. We have a vitamin D deficiency pandemic in this country because of our sun smart messaging, where sunblock cover-ups stay in the shade. And we, of course, manufacture our own vitamin D through sun exposure. So we have a nation of, suboptimal vitamin D people. One of the things we could have done, based on pre-existing information, not the new peer-reviewed science paper that I posted, but pre-existing, we could have used vitamin D supplementation at cents per dose for every likely vitamin D deficient person in New Zealand. Everybody with dark skin, everybody in an institution, frail elderly, pregnant women, etc., etc., etc. We could have made sure to use that run-up before COVID actually arrived in New Zealand to make sure that we were all replete with vitamin D. We didn't. We used billions of dollars in marketing the safe and effective messaging instead. So, back to my post. The reason a post like that is a threat is because that paper also talked about successful treatment of COVID-19 with megadosing of vitamin D. Well, that kind of information can't be allowed to exist, because if it does, of course, let's talk ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine. If we acknowledge that there is genuine efficacy in treatment with those things, it means that the provisional consents can't be given. Or if they have been given, they've been illegally given. So you see how talking about vitamin C, vitamin D, zinc on Facebook is a threat to big pharma, big profit.
Oh, yes.
So that was one of the 1 month bans. I got a 1 month ban quite early on for saying, hey guys, I could be wrong, but I think I'm seeing a really early signal for myocarditis with the Pfizer mRNA through empirical stories that were being shared with me, that were being emailed to me, and through reports to the American VAERS database, and then reports here. And I got a 1 month ban for that. I got a 1 month ban for a post that said, hey guys, I think I might be seeing an early empirical signal for female menstrual dysregulation with the Pfizer mRNA, because I'm getting all these reports. And in our social media group, I'd put a post up and I'd say to all the women in the group who've had the product, have you experienced a menstrual effect from it? Boom, 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 boom. Hundreds and hundreds of responses in 48 hours, like massive responses to that post. And so then I say, I think I'm seeing an early signal. This was way before anybody was talking about the now confirmed, established serious adverse event pertaining to female fertility and, menstruation. So that was a 1 month ban. There were others, but you get the picture. So the bans, the things I was being banned for, people might think, she was being banned because she's a fruitcake loon cooker. No, I was being banned for speaking the truth, but it was the inconvenient truth. It was the truth that potentially was going to prevent people from just rolling up their sleeves, without first doing some research, secondly, expecting a genuine informed consent process. It was the truth that potentially was going to educate people on self-care and self-help, which was completely missing from any public health messaging or narrative that we had in New Zealand. There was nothing. There was isolation. There was sterilize your hands. And there was get jabbed, get jabbed, get jabbed. And that's all we were told. I was asking questions in our group, like I was posting saying, hey, New Zealanders, because a lot of my messaging was I was trying to create a community where New Zealanders felt, oh, this is mine. This is my safe place. I'm a Kiwi and I'm here in this safe place. And I was, I've forgotten my thread. What was I talking? What did I say leading up to that?
You were talking about essentially why you were getting banned by simply speaking the truth and asking questions.
Yes.
And you were saying, hey, New Zealanders, where you were trying to create a safe space for New Zealanders to discuss and communicate.
Thank you. That's triggered it. Well, I remember now. I was going to say, I talked early on about obesity. It was so long before any messaging came into New Zealand around the known connection between obesity and poor outcome with COVID, right? Mm-hmm. And so right at the beginning, I was saying, hey, one of the things we can all do for ourselves, there's never been more motivation. There's never been a better time to start thinking about exercising every day, go for a 30-minute walk, because even in lockdowns, we were allowed to do that, right? Walk for 30 minutes every day. Let's talk about diet. What can we do? Let's drop some pounds. I was doing what I'd done for 35 years. I was a holistic health practitioner. So I was saying, we don't have to just sit in our homes being bathed in terror, waiting for the injectable with all the God knows what consequences that come with it. There are things we can do. Let's look at our diet. Let's lose weight. Let's exercise. Let's talk about meditation. So I was trying to help people understand that, as with every infectious disease in the world, the implications and the impact of it are completely unique to the individual. And we've seen that with COVID. How predominantly healthy people under the age of 60 who don't have tons of comorbidities have been just fine. They've had a cold, or they've maybe had, like a bad flu for a week and they've recovered. And predominantly our children, most of them haven't even known they've had it. They've been asymptomatic. But if you're 83, you have high blood pressure, you have diabetes, you have some degree of kidney failure associated with diabetes, and you get COVID, it could be your death sentence, right? That's the truth. So we know that optimizing health will really change at a public health level, at a society level, can really change the outcome of the impact of an infectious disease like COVID. We've had no messaging about that to this day. Nobody is talking about those things in New Zealand. None of the billions of dollars of money for a media presence, in printed paper and on legacy media platforms, not one column inch has been dedicated to that kind of discussion.
Why do you think Sean Plunkett called you a cooker? Was he referring to something like a specific thing that you said, or was he just generally saying that you're just a crazy person, you shouldn't be allowed to speak? We live in a free speech society. Why should someone get banned by asking the woman if their menstruation has been changed since taking the vaccine? All of that stuff is wrong personally to me, in terms of, everybody should be allowed to say whatever they want.
Yeah.
Because the truth eventually surfaces, and people should have the right to access information from multiple sources, and we should be adults enough to allow people to believe what the truth is, and none of that should be controlled by anybody. So was there anything specific that he was referring to call you a cooker, or was he just generally saying that everything that you're doing is wrong and you should be censored, banned, or whatever?
Great question. I wish I knew the answer. I really don't know the answer. So Sean Plunkett and I share the Twitter sphere. We're both on X. I do a lot of posting. We are back on Facebook. We've survived a year now back on Facebook. The censorship is like 1% of what it was at the height of the madness.
Interesting.
But I do like the dominance of my posting on X. And I do that because I have a global audience on X, right? And we're now at a point where a lot of what I'm doing is information and awareness for moving forward, an understanding that mRNA platform is not disappearing after this. In fact, this has been deemed by authorities as a huge success, and this is the way of the future. And with it is going to come the legacy of harm that we've seen this time with the COVID injectables. So I post on X, and Sean is on X. And on X, I post a lot about our vaccine-injured people, and I put their stories up. So a lot of people send me their stories. This has happened to me, and I say, do you consent to me sharing this publicly, with your first name? And we have a database where we share them all as well, where we save them all. So I put those up, and invariably when I get the cooker response, it's Sean never does it when I put up the science. He doesn't even do it when I put up the pharmacovigilance data. It's when I share somebody's personal story. He says, oh, what a load of garbage. What a cooker, about the person that's been jabbed and me for sharing their story.
Right.
So that's the framing of where the cooker narrative comes from. I don't even know what a cooker is, but anyway. My husband would love it if I was a cooker. This work has taken me out of the kitchen. I'm really a cooker now. He does a lot of the cooking.
Yeah. I mean, I think you just can't hide anymore the fact that people are vaccine injured, and you can see it even for someone like myself who's not an expert in this field. Like, when someone's telling their stories, and I think one of the things that we have seen the effects of removing all the censorship and allowing people to talk and share the stories is that when people share that they've been injured and how they've been injured and what's changed from their optimized health to an injured sort of recovering health environment and reality, it's hard to not believe, it's hard to not listen to them, and there's just so many. I've had so many guests on my show talk about this. I had Harry on my show.
Oh, did you? Oh,
yeah,
wow.
I did. Yeah,
I must find that. I love Harry. Oh my gosh, he's one of my heroes. He's the most amazing man.
And these are first respondents,
yes,
and paramedics, and so how can you not listen to them and what they're saying? So to me that was quite shocking, and and also a lot of people in public would feel a lot of anger about the fact that their voices were censored.
Oh, yes.
And we've seen the likes of the Twitter executives go in front of the Senate and the House and go through intense questioning about why censor these voices and push these voices. And eventually the truth surfaces to the fact that it was orchestrated and the pressure was put by governments and big pharma and the media to take those actions, to push a certain narrative for a specific purposes and reasons.
Absolutely.
And people get caught up in those narratives, and they have their own personal things going on. I'm surprised that someone like Sean Plunkett would call you a cooker, and I don't know him. I see him on X, and I like what he's achieved with the platform because
So
legacy.
do I.
yeah,
I
legacy
share some of
media.
his work. I share
Yeah,
his work on my platform, and I've written to him open letters, which I've posted on X and tagged him into, saying, "Hey, Sean, I'd love to come and speak to you. Invite me on your program."
yeah.
And
Well,
and
now
all
we
my
have,
followers say, "No, no, don't go on. He'll chop you up into mincemeat. Don't go on there."
yeah. I think the beauty now we have in New Zealand is the rise of citizen journalism,
Yep.
podcasts, these kind of, long form podcasts are really an essential part of it. You can see how Joe Rogan's podcast was very influential in terms of the Trump going on the show, having a conversation for 3 hours. You really get to understand someone and understand who they are. And
Yes.
you can't really hide away from these things because, you know, you have to talk for a long period of time and people really listen, and now they have the authority to really believe and trust who they want to believe and trust, and there is no longer a government or a media or someone like Sean Plunkett or anybody to control the narrative and be a gatekeeper of the truth. And the moment you decide to do that, you're in trouble. It's a trap because I don't do that on my show. I don't control the narrative. I don't decide who's telling the truth or not. I think the audience need to have access to information, and it's up to them to decide what they want to believe in and how they want to use that information.
Absolutely.
And a healthier society is you have multiple sources of information accessible to compare and peer review and discuss on social media with friends, and then eventually the truth, you're led to the truth.
That is the beauty of, that is why I have such a love-hate relationship with X as a platform. Honestly, some mornings I think, oh, can I bear it? Can I face going on there? Because there's everything, there's the dark, there's the light, there's the good, the bad, the evil, the ugly, the beautiful. There's everything on X, right? It's a melting pot.
Yeah.
But oh my goodness, I've never known a platform that has given me the ability to make friendships and connections with scientists all around the world. Top scientists that in a million years I would never have dreamt I could actually get access to. I
Yeah.
can message. I say, hey, can you help me with this? Is this right? What does this mean? And they will respond, which is just incredible. So you're part of an unspoken collegial network of truth seekers and truth speakers refusing to be silenced. That was one of the things I wanted to say, going back, rewinding somewhat, is, I always encourage people when a doctor speaks out, or a scientist, or a vaccine injured person, or myself, or New Zealand doctors speaking out with science, or Guy Hatchard, or many other people who are courageously speaking the truth and asking questions. When people do that, the first thing you should ask yourself is, what does this cost them? What is the cost to them of speaking out like this? Because let me tell you, it's friggin' huge.
Yeah.
It's huge. Like, people have lost everything through having the courage to speak out. They've lost, lifetime careers as doctors and scientists and surgeons and cardiologists. Not only have they lost their careers, they're still in multi-year-long processes of being dragged before medical tribunals and basically medical courts of law, for having committed the crime of having alerted their patient to the fact, I can give you no informed consent before you take this product because the information about safety does not exist. And for that, you lose your medical license, and you have to go on a retraining program if you ever want to get it back, where you're trained in what is okay to say and what is not okay to say. And you're hauled before the medical council. We've still got doctors in New Zealand, NZDSOS, going through processes with medical council, hearings and tribunals for doing exactly what I just told you, for speaking the truth. So always, rather than, immediately think, what a loon, what a cooker. If the person speaking out to you is somebody where they come to you from, from a background where they have a lot to lose. They've spent over a decade training for their profession. They've had 20 or 30 years in healthcare. And now they're standing up and saying to you, this product is dangerous, it should be withdrawn. The first thing you should do is listen to that person, because they have everything to lose. In fact, they've probably already lost it, and they're still speaking the truth.
Yeah, and I think the stories that you share of these people that have been injured and they've lost everything, they relate to me personally. I've lost my businesses, I lost my marriage, I lost my friends, I lost a lot of things from all of this, and I bought into it, and I was like, okay, we gotta make sure we deal with this pandemic. And I was in the business of creating hospitality grade office environments for people to come and work, engage in different cultures. I was building a global brand, a New Zealand way of work culture, innovation, and technology companies, startups.
How amazing!
And I started building that in Taranaki and then I expanded into Auckland. The idea was to expand it in the US. I had, a lot of money invested to go to Expo Dubai in 2020, which was then postponed to 2021. New Zealand would not allow me to go travel because they would not allow me to come back in with MIQ. I had at that time, I had kids under the age of 5, 3 kids. I had 2 kids during COVID. And, I did not go through any vaccine injury or anything. I took the first dose, and then when I learned that it wasn't actually doing anything, I was not interested in partaking into that because people were still getting it. And so once I awakened to all of that stuff, I was a business speaker. I did a TED talk. I went on different stages, and then I evolved into doing a podcast and being on X, and just expressing my thoughts. And my friends and family were not happy with me doing that, and they and I was like, no, this doesn't make any sense. We have to have freedom of speech. We have to speak our mind. We have to express ourselves. It's a good measure. It's a healthy society if we can coexist where I say something about you, you don't like it, and you're okay with it, because that's how it works. And on X, I stumbled upon a new career of being a satire comic. I satirized the news. I made fun of, all these high-tensed, for, against in situations, whether it was free speech, trust in government, whether it was COVID. I wasn't making fun of them. And I ended up launching from New Zealand to a global audience, a satire publishing business. It's called Belushi News, and I put it on my individual account. 31 million readers in 2024.
Oh my goodness!
And it becomes, so much as you do this as a profession, you have this new tool in your armor, which you have to learn how to use these tools to defend what's important in democracy, whether it's free speech or the human constitution. And that's the reality we are in now. Is I think it's important for people to speak and engage equally and listen and share their stories, tell their stories. And that's if we don't have that, we don't have a democracy. You look at Ukraine. I know I'm going on a weave, but I'll cut it back. And Ukraine is not a democracy anymore because they have shut down elections. Zelensky rating is so low, and he doesn't want to run an election. Never in history we've had where a country's been in war and we have not had elections. We've always had elections. So the radical left and the likes of Jacinda, they think elections are a threat to democracy.
Yeah, the irony.
It's the irony, right? And this year has been such a great awakening for a lot of people. And these big events like Trump winning are just a sign of how people just readjust and go, whoop. It's just like your DNA, the human DNA that tries to survive itself. It's almost like it's an error within the DNA that wants to survive, right?
Yes.
So we have these in our systems of the world, whether it's governments or and media. There's always an error that goes, boop. Let's just adjust. Let's just correct. And I think 2024 has been a great year where the stuff that you're talking about now, it's real news. It's the truth, and it's the narrative that people want to listen to and want to understand, and it's so normalized, at least to me and in the world that I'm part of.
It's yes, I 100% agree with everything you just said there. The last 4 years have been, globally, the hardest 4 years that we've had for decades, right? Perhaps since, I don't know, the Second World War. But this has affected way more countries than the Second World War affected. So it's been hard for nations. It's been hard for societies. But it's been excruciatingly painful for individuals, for individual people, souls on their journey. And we've lived through the most immense era of suppression, of othering. Oh, you're an anti-vaxxer, and I'm a pro-vaxxer.
Yeah.
Like social
dividing people.
schisms.
Yeah, cancel culture is very effective
Cancel
in dividing
culture, yeah.
people and creating these different groups and putting them into groups and then telling
Seeing us
lies about
against
those
each other.
groups. The woke ideology, it's so dangerous. It's a cult, and it's designed to alienate people, force them to live damaged and degrading lives. Some people go and kill themselves. So, it's all designed. It's an effective tool.
And what the cancel culture does, which is what we are living through with the COVID reactions as well. Oh, you're a doctor that doesn't want to administer this? Well, you're cancelled. Not only cancelled, but belittled. Oh, you're an individual citizen that won't take it because you read the original Pfizer trials and you see the flaws in the trial? Oh, you're a cooker, an anti-vaxxer, and we're going to put you on the shelf over there and make sure that we all, poke fun at you. Division, and the painful thing that I'm so aware of in my community, because my community, the Health Forum, continues, and we still hold a platform where people can speak their truth and share their reality of their existence. The most painful thing of all that I see, besides the vax injury, is that seemingly now irreparable broken relationships within families. The children who no longer will speak to their parents, adult children, the parents who've been completely, ostracized and cut off from their children and their grandchildren, the siblings, families of 4 or 5 siblings, where 4 of them won't speak to one because the one decided not to take the mRNA. And here we are now, coming up 4 years later, and they're still not talking. Yeah. And so I think, most people exist pretty much in the here and now, right? We deal with what we have to deal with today. We fend off the dragons today, and we make sure we've still got a roof and we can get our food. And life is tough for a lot of people just existing, right? But I think 20 years from now, when we look back on what we have just lived through, I think we will collectively be astounded at how long the tail of harm is, the repercussions, the unimagined, unforeseen repercussions, the domino effects, as a result of this process in the COVID response, this domino fell over. And over the next 20 years, that domino is causing all of these ones to go as well. So I think we're very much living a work in progress. I, hand on heart, can tell you without a shadow of a doubt from my community, which is tens of thousands. I mean, I have a community across all platforms now of about 50,000 people. So it gives me a good thumb on the pulse of what's happening in the collective. The pain has not gone away. Many people confess that they believe they have PTSD. They're living with deeply ingrained mental health problems. Many people are still having panic attacks or struggling with depression. A lot of people still have insomnia that started during the COVID response during lockdowns and has become a habitual problem. So many people share with me about the pain within their family. I've lived through that myself. I know it's real because I've lived that. You've lived that. It's real. Many people who have lost lifelong friends because of this culture, this propaganda, the training that we are trained with, that there is a way to think and anybody and behave. And if, God forbid, you're an independent thinker or you have pre-existing knowledge that makes you question some of this narrative because, hey, I've worked in this profession for 40 years and that's diametrically opposed to what we were taught for 40 years. So if you're outside of the training and what you think, we're now being conditioned. The expectation is it's approved that we ostracize those people. And not only do we just shut them out, but we attack them, we belittle them, we harangue them, we crush them. I think this is terrifying. This is terrifying. The event in Germany, which I won't say on your podcast, but that whole...
You can.
Oh, it can?
Yeah, of course you can. We talk about Hitler all the time, Nazis.
Okay. I didn't want your podcast to be taken down.
No. Daryl Cooper is an interesting guy who's a Nazi sympathizer, and he thinks Winston Churchill was a bad guy and Hitler was the good guy, and Hitler didn't want to kill all the Jews in gas chambers. He thought that was the best way to kill all the Jews. It's.
Okay, I might not watch that podcast.
Whatever you wanna. Yeah, it's fine. But we don't get put down because the podcast on Spotify. The podcast is on X. It doesn't get put down.
Okay.
Even YouTube's actually very nice these days. They don't take stuff down. Even, some of my shows is just my friends. We have conversations. We swear. It's masculine podcast. It's about men lifting other men. We talk about all sorts of stuff, but we never get strikes. So it's so far so good. Yeah.
That's interesting. Well, I mean, I wasn't born back in the 1940s, in the Hitler regime, but... I wasn't born then, but the reading I have done and the many hours of video I have watched about propaganda and gaslighting and othering and how there is a playbook for creating division in society, in families, in friendships, and once that division is created on many different fronts, right? Trump versus Biden, trans ideology, vaccine ideology, a million different ways. Once society is fragmented with the playbook that says it's okay to do this, and if you don't believe the same as me, I'm no longer your friend, or I'm going to sack you out of your workplace. What that does is it makes us, our families, us as individuals and our society so vulnerable to control by top-down control, governmental control. We're sitting targets for it. We're being manipulated and played. And so my work and my messaging and the world I'm working in now is so much bigger than, what I'm known for is my work around mRNA and vaccine injury. And yes, I'm still doing that. But my personal awakening obviously filters through into my work as well. And I will never, ever be the same person. And I'm sure it's the same for you. And it's the same for millions, if not billions of people who are awakening around the world. And so I see the last 4 years of darkness, potentially the hardest I've lived through in my life and our society has lived through. It's like the crushing down, the censorship, the fear, the culture of fear, the culture of inappropriate fear. Most New Zealanders had no idea and have no idea of how lethal COVID is. They've got no idea at all. They think, oh my God, still most people, if you get COVID, you could die. To
It's
a
funny
20-year-old healthy.
when I hear those stories of how people fear COVID today, I just can't stop laughing. It's like, are you stupid?
They still live with that fear.
Are you a retard?
Yeah, it's still the messaging though, right?
Yeah, it is.
And I know we live on independent media. We're accessing the scientists right from their mouth on independent media. But if you're an older person, this culture that we're doing now is completely foreign. Actually, my darling 84-year-old mother, who's as awake as they come now, because I've introduced her to so many long-form podcasts. But prior to this, she was all about the 6 o'clock news, and the house stopped at 6 o'clock.
The 6 o'clock news. Was that a thing?
Oh, that was a thing. Absolutely. That's still a thing for most older New Zealanders, in their 70s and 80s.
Yeah.
That is still where all their news comes from. We are invisible to those people, which has been a great frustration for me, obviously, because I can't get any of my work in front of the faces of, people who are now lining up for dose 8, dose 9 in New Zealand.
Wow. That's crazy. Dose 8, dose 9.
Yeah.
But I think one of the things also important with people who've shared their stories with you and the vaccine injuries and people that are, looking for ways to heal from all of that stuff, and the stuff that I went through, the way that I look at it, I think it's very important to not get caught up in a oppressor-oppressed victim mindset. And don't look at yourself that way, because I love my life now. I love my life more than I loved my life before, even though I've lost a lot of things, but I've gained a lot of things. And the most important thing I've gained is my awakening, my personal awakening, my constitution, my right to fight and protect my rights and stand up and learn all these things I need to learn. I grew up in a world where government worked as it should. That I never thought about government. Government was as less as it was possible, and I had the freedom to do everything I needed to do. And then at some point, it just flicked. Somebody was in the background working to just gain more and more control and use that against people. And then all of a sudden, I was like, whoa, okay, now, everything that I talk about every day, that I write about, everything I do is government is somehow involved and somehow abusing their power, somehow doing something. So it's awakened a constitution within me that has never was awakened because it was never needed, because there was no government, and I had the freedom to say and do whatever I wanted. So now it's like, okay, there is something in there that will always protect me as this human thing. And naturally myself, I'm a very anti-fragile mindset person. Anti-fragility is something that is more powerful than resilience. Anti-fragility, the resilient, doesn't resist shock. They get the shock. No matter how resilient your wall is, someone is going to find a way to break through it. Anti-fragility is whatever attacks you get that makes you stronger. And you can laugh at yourself. And you can mock yourself. When someone mocks you because you're a cooker, you can mock yourself as a cooker, and then the other person's power all of a sudden disappears. Yeah. Because you're walking around with a cooker T-shirt, or or whatever it is, or you write satire, or you make fun of yourself. That's anti-fragility is what I've sort of enjoyed a lot, and I've never seen getting involved into this as an end goal, that I want to awaken people and everybody needs to understand that vaccines cause injury or whatever your cause is. I think it's just it's a forever fight. It's a forever movement. And the most amazing thing that I've gained from all of this is the awakening. And one of the things that I did from all of this awakening, part of my healing journey, which I'm curious to ask you about as well, is I did psychedelics. And psychedelics, I did iboga, which is which is kind of like ayahuasca. It's DMT activated, and it comes from Gabon from Africa, and it's modernized, called ibogaine. Successfully used for healing all sorts of different addictions, for me, it was an incredible way to kind of deal with all the changes that I was going through, whether it was mental and this and that. And one of the things we did was detoxing from the vaccine that I had taken.
Okay.
That's one of the things I did.
Yeah.
And there was a protocol by these shamans that did the healing on me. And, it was confirmed to me that I'm detoxed from the vaccine. And I've never taken any vaccine after that. In your experience as a holistic practitioner and these people that you interact with every day who have been harmed by the vaccine, what do you think are the methods that people can pursue to detox or heal from these injuries and get back to that optimized health?
Okay. So, great question. My answer is going to be a mixed bag. First of all, I just make it clear that I am no longer in practice. My clinic is closed as of 2 years ago because the work I'm doing with the Health Forum, advocating for vaccine injured and education and awareness, etc., is my full-time job. So I can't run a clinic as well. So that being the case, I personally have not been involved in the process of working with vaccine injured people, writing them protocols and having appointments with them. That's not what I do.
Right.
So, but I do guide them towards people who can help them and resources that can help them, hopefully. So we have a wonderful working relationship with NZDSOS, New Zealand Doctors Speaking Out with Science. That is a collaborative of doctors, surgeons, psychologists, all kinds of people, medical professionals who are, I call them the honest doctors, the ones who have lost everything because they refuse to go along with the narrative. And they have a wonderful telehealth service with a number of practitioners where they use an integrative approach. So Western pharmaceutical medical plus the best of holistic therapies in doing everything they can to support and work with our seriously vaccine injured. So a lot of people are going through their telehealth line. If people don't have, they also have a sponsorship program. So the sad reality for many people who are seriously harmed, of course, is that they are unable to work. And most of them are also ACC declined. Accident Compensation Corporation, that's our vaccine injury compensation, pot of money. But they make you climb to the top of Mount Everest before you get accepted for that. So many people are living with destitution and poverty along with serious vaccine injury. So NZDSOS have a sponsorship program where kind donors, if there are any kind donors watching this, please think about donating to this program. Kind donors give money to that sponsorship program. And then when we get the serious vaccine injured coming to the telehealth but unable to pay for anything, the money from the sponsorship program looks after them. So it's a great system. So we have that channel going. We also tell people about the spike protein detox protocols. The World Council for Health, FLCCC have a number of spike protein detox protocols. Of course, the challenge with a lot of those is that one of the central approaches for all of those detox protocols is the use of ivermectin. And you still just can't bowl up to your doctor in New Zealand and say, hey, would you prescribe me 6 weeks worth of ivermectin at 12 milligrams a day? You can't do that. It's still used in New Zealand in a very limited way for scabies predominantly. Parasitic infections and scabies, 3 milligrams a day for 3 days, that's going to do nothing for vaccine injury, right? So we have that issue going on. Peter McCulloch, USA cardiologist, he's got something called the Wellness Company. They're doing a lot of work around, and they're having also peer-reviewed papers published around treating vaccine injury. They've got a lot of product that they have manufactured. It is expensive, and unfortunately you can't actually get it direct from there to New Zealand. So to access that product, you've got to have a friend in Australia where the Wellness Company will ship to Australia, and then your friend sends it to you in New Zealand. So all of that is happening. People a lot of our injured have tried all kinds of things. They've tried intravenous vitamin C, intravenous glutathione. They've tried chelation, hyperbaric oxygen chambers, ozone therapy. A lot of them are doing intermittent fasting. Some of them are doing a more radical fasting, 3 and 4 day water fasting, under supervision with a health practitioner, holistic health practitioner usually. So they're trying all sorts. And my heart always sinks a bit when I talk about this bit, because invariably, when I'm doing public speaking, I do a lot of that. And when I'm at an event, people ask me, what's working? Tell us what's working.
Yeah.
And the same on podcasts, tell us what's working.
Mm.
And it's a fine line between telling you the truth as I see it and destroying hope. It's a very fine line. Mm-hmm. So let's start with the good news. Some people who were severely impacted at the time 3 years ago with dose 1 or dose 2 and were bedridden, and couldn't walk from the bed to the letterbox without their heart rate going up to 180 beats a minute and their blood pressure going to catastrophic levels. Some of those people have improved enough that no longer happens, that they are up, they're not in bed all day, they're up, and they are leading a life of some sort. It's a shadow of the life it used to be. They're not, many of them are not well enough to work or go back to studying or whatever they were doing, but they're well enough that they can be up all day and, pot around the house and maybe have a sleep after lunch and go to bed at 8 o'clock. So we've got a category of people like that. We've got some people who had more minor kind of impacts at the time of the injection, who seemingly are fully recovered. They are fully recovered. They're back at work, and that's great. They would be people like who had a hyperimmune response with like severe flu-like symptoms, followed by 3 or 4 months of like chronic fatigue-like symptoms. All right, so a good number of them are well enough to participate in life. But my ongoing relationship with a lot of people in the health forum that were injured at the beginning, I guess it's a biased group. The ongoing relationship is because they're not recovered, right? So that group still needs and wants connection and contact and support. So I'm aware of that group. And there are a lot of people in that group. And not just in New Zealand, not just in the health forum. I follow platforms all around the world doing various iterations of the same kind of work we're doing, right? In America, it's React 19. Highly recommend their resources. Follow them on X, React, and then 1919, with Brianne Dressen, who herself is seriously AstraZeneca vaccine injured. They're doing amazing work. So I follow these platforms and I see, oh my gosh, I watch them and I think, this could be New Zealand. They're talking about Americans, but everything they're saying is in my group. This is the same. And Japan and Germany and UK, groups all over the world, they're all having the same experience. They're all having the same experience of still not being acknowledged. So they're invisible, still not being acknowledged and spoken and written about by the media. And boy, are we leading the world in that in New Zealand. Fortress New Zealand, the legacy media in New Zealand is impenetrable with trying to get stories about vaccine injury. You just cannot do it. Whereas a lot of other countries are really cracking now. It's really reaching the mainstream on TV programs, on news broadcasts, printed in newspapers. People are really talking about it. Australia's really breaking. They've had a lot of legacy media attention now to vaccine injury. Same in UK. Same in America. Fox News, there's a lot of stuff, they're talking about it. In New Zealand, zilch. Like, they are still invisible. They're the broken, invisible New Zealanders that nobody believes exists unless they personally know somebody or they're in an awake community like the Health Forum or your community, Adnan. I've lost my train of thought again. So I'm telling you, I've got too many thoughts. This is the thing. I've got too much to say. Too many thoughts. What was I saying?
Yeah, so you're talking about people looking for different ways to get...
Thank you. Yes, we've got our group that haven't healed.
Yes.
We've got our group that haven't healed. So I don't know what the answer is for these people.
Are they... do you know of any medicine that they're taking that may have worked for some? Are there any success stories? Do you know much about Joe Rogan's medicine that he took for COVID-19? He got ostracized by CNN, and Joe Rogan put this video out that he was taking some medicine for his COVID recovery.
Ivermectin. He took ivermectin.
I think something like that. Something to do with like something that you give to horses.
Horse dewormer, they call it.
And they kind of turned his face into this really dark, looking like he was really unwell. I think he sued them. So are there any success stories? Are there people taking these ivermectins and things and they work?
Yes. So when people can access ivermectin, and I won't say any more about that, but if anybody's interested, they can email me. They're not going to access it by going to their doctor and, asking for a script for it. That's not going to work. But those seriously injured who have been able to access ivermectin, that is one of the key things where they see a major change in their health. It's, like if I had to put in order the things that I'm seeing helping people, that would be the top of the list. And by the way, for anybody that's thinking I'm being irresponsible talking about ivermectin, you might not know because perhaps you've only become aware of this drug through legacy media and government messaging about it. You might not be aware that prior to the whole COVID outbreak thing, ivermectin has been one of the most widely prescribed drugs in the world. It's been around for many decades, 40 plus years. It's in the top 10 most useful drugs and most widely prescribed drugs ever for the World Health Organization. And it's also won a Nobel Peace Prize for medicine, that drug.
Yeah, it's a great drug. I mean,
it's an incredible drug. It's used for people. But yes, it's used as a veterinary drug as well. It's used to worm horses and cows and sheep and goodness knows what. But it is also a human drug, right?
Yeah. The funny thing is, I have had so much improvements in my health and my optimized health by simply listening to Joe Rogan. I can tell you measurable things that have improved my health much more better than everybody else has ever told me in my entire life. Listen to Joe Rogan, and it's just okay. I'll take this. I'll take that. Take these supplements. These nootropics are good for the brain. Go to the gym, work out, go do jujitsu. It's and people have better lives listening to this information than going to their doctor and listening to the news and taking all the crap that they get from big pharma propaganda.
Yeah, I'm always really careful because of my background as a health practitioner and my code
Not
of
me.
ethics
I
and
just,
everything. I know you can do that. I'm always really careful. I can talk about things in a generic way. Like I can say ivermectin's helping people or, intermittent fasting, but I would never say, hey, all you vaccine injured watching, get on ivermectin because they need to work with a health practitioner. There's risk benefit for every person. There's drug interactions with other drugs. That's fine. I'm just making it clear where I stand.
Yeah.
So we still have a large group of our seriously injured. Now, what do they look like? Who am I talking about? I'm talking about people with seemingly permanent cardiac damage. So, to this day, we're told that mRNA-induced myocarditis, which is inflammation of the heart muscle itself, we're told yes, we acknowledge that this is a serious adverse event risk for mRNA technology, for Pfizer and Moderna. We're also told, we know full well, that the greatest demographic risk are young men under the age of 30 on their second dose and beyond, but especially that second dose. But you just have to look at the New Zealand MedSafe database to see that actually it can affect, and it does affect, all sorts. Young women, old women, 73-year-old men. Don't think if you have chest pain and breathlessness and crazy racing heart after a COVID mRNA jab, don't think, oh, this can't be myocarditis because I'm not an 18-year-old male, because that's not the truth. It is affecting all demographics, right? But most severely, young men. So our serious injured group, we have a lot of people who develop myocarditis or pericarditis, which is inflammation of the sac around the heart. And now, 3 years on, they're still incapacitated. So contrary to what the New Zealand Ministry of Health is still telling you to this day, that this is self-limiting and most people are okay within a week or so, that's absolute garbage. We have people years on. And of course, with myocarditis, it's not just the impact of the daily functioning of your body and your life. It's not just the chest pain and the breathlessness and the fatigue and the dizziness and the unstable heart rate and all of those things. It's the unpredictability of the outcome of sudden death, because it causes, myocarditis causes cardiac scarring and fibrosis. It causes thickening and hardening of the heart muscle. And this affects the electrical impulses in the heart. And you will know, many people don't know, but all around the world, we've got this unprecedented phenomenon that we've never seen before of healthy young people dying suddenly.
Yeah.
Athletes.
It's crazy.
Oh my
It's
God,
crazy.
my news feed on Twitter, the athletes.
Yeah.
I started a thread about 18 months ago where I thought, okay, this is going to get some attention because healthy young athletes shouldn't just drop dead in the middle of a soccer game. Like, I know very occasionally in history it's happened, but it's not a general thing, right? So I started a thread and I was putting up maybe one person a week that I was coming across on my thread. And then gradually over the months, it became one person a day. And now I've stopped doing it. I can't do it anymore because I would be adding like 15 stories a day around the world of athletes just dying suddenly, warming up or on the field or...
There's clear evidence of excess death have suddenly increased.
Excess deaths in demographics where we shouldn't be seeing it. So the healthiest part of our population. So unfortunately, New Zealand, this is something I've only become aware of in the last 4 years. New Zealand statistics gathering, the keeping of statistics in New Zealand is really rough around the edges. I hadn't realized that previously. Cause of death data, we have to wait 6 years before we get that data. 6 years? We found that out through OIAs. We asked about cause of death data. We can't get it for 6 years from when the person died. So we have to look at other countries. And there are some great people in America doing amazing work looking at population demographics around sudden death or all-cause mortality excluding COVID. Again, on X, follow Ethical Skeptic. He is incredible. He's some kind of top-level data analyst. He does amazing work. And then there, of course, there's Ed Dowd, who Ed Dowd and his team have done a lot of data gathering in USA, looking at trend changes. And UK as well has got the ONS data, has traditionally been quite transparent and very thorough. And so what we're seeing in all of those places is this anomalous, never seen before, huge spiking in all-cause mortality, non-COVID, all-cause mortality in the young, healthy demographic of our society. So you can chop it all different ways. You can say 40 to 0, you see that phenomenon. You can say age 18 to 0, you see that phenomenon. In fact, Ethical Skeptic has just posted some incredible graphs this week showing heartbreaking graphs about what's happened to 0 to 17 in America in the last 3 years. 2021 was the rollout, right? So the last 3 years, their all-cause mortality has just shot off the chart. It's insane. So where are the government agencies talking about this? Why is it left to independent data analysts on social media platform to be saying, look at this, look at this, for God's sake, look at this? Why? I mean, that's a story and a question in itself.
Yeah. What do you think of Barry Young's data that he leaked? I don't know if you've seen it. I don't know. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I do. First of all, I think Barry is a hero. Barry did what he thought was the right thing, to great, massive personal costs to him. So he has got great courage and fortitude, right? I chose not to download Barry's data onto my computer. When that data was released and it started whizzing around, we had court injunctions in New Zealand, basically made it illegal to download that data. Well, I know a lot of people downloaded that data. I decided not to, for a number of reasons. One, because I'm responsible for a platform with tens of thousands of people that rely on the Health Forum and our work, and I didn't want to jeopardize my position, that platform, their need by downloading illegal data. Number two, I didn't download it because I'm not a statistician. I can't analyze that data. I'm not a data analyst statistician. I mean, yes, I can understand statistical graphs and I can understand peer-reviewed studies mostly. Sometimes I ask epidemiologist friends to help me, but I couldn't download data points of whatever it was, 2 million data points, and make head or tail of it, right? So what I did instead was I followed closely the Substacks of people who do have the skills to analyze that data. And so I followed another number of people on Substack, and what became apparent was that even the people who are in our camp, e.g. people saying this technology is unsafe, it's killing people, people are vax injured. So our community, the experts in our community still could not reach a consensus on what that data showed us. So, for example, there was one collective of data that Barry shared where 100% of the people in a particular location that had the Pfizer died in the subsequent 2 years. But when you look at that demographic of who those people were that received it, they were all aged 90 and above. So I put a comment on his post on X this week saying, well, yes, they all died in 2 years, but I wonder what would happen if you looked at an unvaccinated demographic of New Zealanders aged 90 and above. Would they all be dead in 2 years? They've exceeded their life expectancy by 7 or more years, So I guess the thing is, I don't know what Barry's data shows. It's a snapshot. It's a couple of million data points. There are many, many million more data points. To have a full story, you'd need all of them together. Irrespective of what Barry is able to show with that leaked data, I know without a shadow of a doubt from the work I have done for the last 3 years and the tens of thousands of emails and messages I've received from families that New Zealanders are dying suddenly and unexpectedly in droves in a way we've never seen before. I don't care what anybody tells you because I've got their stories and there's so many of them. Teenagers who go to bed, happy teenagers, 17 years old, no health problems, have the jab, 2 days later they go to bed, night mum, see you in the morning. They never get up. They die in their sleep.
Wow.
And
Is this the
we,
COVID jab they're having?
Pfizer mRNA, they've all had the Pfizer mRNA. One of the things our
In
team
New
has
Zealand,
done,
the teenagers, they just don't
yes,
wake up. Wow.
yes, one of the things we've done in New Zealand,
So
so we've done
sad.
two things, the Health Forum. As I say, we've learnt as we've gone along. So at the beginning, when we were just slammed with thousands and thousands of emails and messages with families telling us what were happening to their loved ones and their children, we thought, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? So we started just saving all of those emails, but we also started an Excel spreadsheet where we started putting in the deaths, right? And then but the reports we were getting were not always first person. It wasn't always, the brother of the deceased or the mother of the deceased. Sometimes it was somebody saying, hey, you guys, this has just happened to my hairdresser. She was 25, like fit, used to go running. She's had the Pfizer and she never woke up. So we put that on our Excel spreadsheet. So it's an empirical observation database, that one, because we don't know the medical history of that 25-year-old hairdresser. But, okay, question mark about that death. So that goes on our Excel spreadsheet. So we've had a team for 3 years doing that, reading obits, looking for sudden unexpected deaths in mandated people, because if they worked through the mandates in that job, we know that they were vaccinated. And we now have about 1,100 deaths on that database. And many of them, I didn't look at it before I got on. I don't know how many of them. Over 100 of those deaths would be in New Zealanders under the age of 25. Children deaths, brain aneurysms in the shower after vax, stroke and death. I don't know how many went to bed and didn't wake up. So we've got. If we go through all the ages, we'd have 30 or more of those deaths where they just went to bed and that was it. So that database, where we never make claims about that, we never say the Pfizer jab killed these people. We say this database is a whole bunch of New Zealanders of varying degrees of health who took the Pfizer, and this is what's happened to them. And it also includes healthy young people. So that database has been submitted many times by New Zealand doctors speaking out with science to MedSafe, Ministry of Health, I don't know who else, governmental bodies, government, and they resubmit it and say, hey, look, we're up to 1,100 now. When are you going to investigate this? And they just get a pro forma response back, basically saying MedSafe is the drug regulator, Pfizer is safe and effective, end of story. So we have that database, but we also have another one that we've been running for 3 years. And we call that the Citizens Database. And that we have a much higher standard. So we have a reporting form for that, which people can find on our website, thehealthforumnz.co.nz. And there's a reporting form on there where we only accept reports from the injured person or first person. So a mother can file for an injured child, for example. And we have a team of mandated out nurses who run that database. And the quality of the data we collect in there is high. So we attach to our reports their cardiac MRIs, their cardiologist letters, their ACC correspondence. Some of those reports are huge. Others we don't have the appendices, but we do have a high quality first person report. Why have we done that? Well, we've done that because we were aware that we have been living through unprecedented history, and posthumously this information will be important because so much is being hidden, because the data we can extract from MedSafe is it's not detailed. We can't delve into facts about a person. So we've done our best as a group of citizens to create that database. And all of the reports in that database are going to be anonymised and submitted to phase 2 of the Royal Commission of Inquiry into the COVID response in New Zealand. Because finally, in phase 2, thanks to NZ First and the pressure they applied in the coalition agreements, we finally have a second phase of the Royal Commission that is going to look at not only the efficacy of the vaccine, but the safety. And that opens the floodgates for our work to finally be seen, including that database, including the 1,100 people on the Excel spreadsheet as well. And
Yeah, that
much,
would be
much
awesome.
more.
That'd be great. I think it's shocking how much of the stuff is not out there for people to see through mainstream media, like you said before, and the deaths and people just suddenly collapsing, the athletes. Now I'm hearing a lot of stuff on my X feed that the amount of vaccinations that kids are getting, I'm not talking about COVID now, the COVID vaccines, just all the vaccinations that are scheduled for kids to have, they're now increasing the amount of vaccines they're having. There's a lot of people saying you should not have your kids vaccinated. It's just like, whoa, this is a lot of information to.
Hornet's nest. This is one of the long tails of the COVID response that I was referring to. That we don't have the presentience to understand what's coming, but I have my suspicions about what's coming. Right, so vaccination has been the holy grail of pharma. It's underpinned much of the modern medical response to sickness, infectious disease. The vast majority of parents around the world just don't even think about it. It's just, oh, my child's 6 weeks old, off to the doctor, boom, there's that jab.
Yeah.
So what has happened with the truth suppression in the last 4 years, and what has happened with the widely visible harm impacts from the actual injectables, irrespective of what legacy media and the government tell you, if you've got your eyes open, even if you're not on social media, most people are now saying, oh, my 25-year-old nephew's really healthy and now he's got 3 autoimmune diseases. Where did that come from? And oh, why did my hairdresser have a heart attack when she was 25? And people are starting to think, oh, something's happened. Something's happened. What is this? So one of the consequences of that is that people are starting to turn and look at other vaccines, the whole childhood schedule, the flu vaccines, the shingles vaccines, and say, well, with what we know about what happened here, with the oppression of truth from drug regulators, from the FDA, the CDC, the TGA, what about all the other vaccines that we just pump into our kids' arms? So I think one of the long tails of COVID is going to be, we're going to see an explosion of parents questioning what they previously just took as a given, that you vaccinate your children. And of course, in America, my goodness, if Kennedy is what is he going to be, National Institutes of Health?
I think
NIH,
he's he's the director of health, Secretary of Health. Sorry, Secretary
of Health, right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if he's that, he's already said that one of the first things he wants to do is just absolutely pull the scab off the top of the FDA and the CDA and get all the information out about everything that's been suppressed around vaccine safety. Oh my goodness, I can't imagine what's coming when that happens.
Yeah. I think that's where I was very disappointed when we had the coalition government come into power in New Zealand. I thought they would expose and leak everything that's been suppressed, like the Pfizer contract. There's a petition in New Zealand. Thousands of people are signing to release the Pfizer contract. Let's see what's in the Pfizer contract. But I think it's been disappointing that they've been 12 months in power and they've kind of slowly moved away from actually leaking and exposing the previous government and restoring the trust and really showing us what was going on and how did they mess it all up so much. But in America, I think what Trump is doing and what, RFK Jr. will do, you have Tulsi Gabbard, she's the, director of national intelligence. I think there's some incredible people coming in. They'll just, and Elon Musk. He's going to be, Department of Doge. And one of the things that he's famous for is the Twitter files. He hired the likes of Michael Schellenberger and Matt Taibbi as these investigative reporters to leak from his own organization that he bought for $44 billion to leak what they've been doing in cahoots with the government, right?
Yeah.
And so I think what we're going to see is in the White House press secretary room, these citizen journalists, investigative reporters that are going to be given access to files like the JFK assassination files and all these different things to start to leak. And that's why we are hearing rumors of President Biden likely pardoning Anthony Fauci so he gets away from being prosecuted, and so and the likes of Bill Gates as well.
Yeah. Oh, they're just showing their corruption, aren't they? I am so excited to be alive to see what's coming in America, because people say, oh, why? It's America. No. What's coming in America is global. The truths that are coming out of there. But I will say that, I hold all of it lightly. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm joyful. I celebrated when all that happened. I'm joyful. Jay Bhattacharya is incredible. He's going to have office as well. I mean, he's an amazing man. He was he was the Plan B man, the Great Barrington Declaration, which made so much sense about sheltering vulnerable people and letting the rest of society carry on. Let it rip through to get natural immunity through the people who are going to be sick for a few days and then bounce back.
Yeah.
So I'm very excited about all that. But, it's politics. It's power. Yeah. Power corrupts.
Yeah.
So, I'm saying, please, God, keep these people honest, keep them walking in the light. But I don't know. We just have to...
Yeah, we have to wait and see, because I was expecting a lot from the New Zealand new government, but I think power corrupts and they get caught up. We talk about why the mainstream media is in New Zealand not showing all these things. It's because Luxon removed Melissa Lee, who was doing, I think, an incredible job as the Minister of Media, and the media really freaked out because she was just letting competition sort it out. And, Winston Peters was saying, oh, you guys spread misinformation. All of a sudden, overnight, everybody just stopped it. They removed Melissa Lee. They brought in... what's his name? The new minister, Paul Goldsmith, and he started to push this Fair Digital Bill, which was all about getting money from Google for using search links from New Zealand media. And it almost feels like the New Zealand government wants to maintain some kind of control in New Zealand media to continue pushing some kind of hybrid propaganda for the government. And that's that's how I see it by getting into this. So you're right. In America, let's see what it looks like in 12 months' time. Is the power going to corrupt? Are they going to push a lot of the changes? Is the House and the Senate that the Republicans have won, are they going to allow for changes to happen? Yeah. So there's a lot of politics.
Are all these amazing people going to be voted into office, right? They've been nominated. We just hope to goodness they get through the voting process.
I mean, the guy that Trump's chosen for the FBI director, he has a great idea, and his idea is we should turn the FBI building into a museum, so the people come and see all the lies and deceits that they've been doing, and everybody should go on the road and work. Kash Patel, right? So, do you really think that the FBI is gonna? The FBI is gonna, and all these nominations need to go through FBI investigation and approval. Do you think the FBI is gonna approve someone like him to come and shut down the FBI? So I think it's crazy. It's amazing. It looks great on the surface. Yeah. But I think what they're gonna also do for the first 12 months, they're just gonna focus on gaslighting the previous government, focus on leaking a lot of information, causing a lot of chaos. Elon Musk is talking about, getting rid of a lot of people in the government, and he wants to do that by mandating people to come to work, because a lot of people don't come to work. They just work from home. They don't do any work. And Biden goes and does this work from home policy for 42,000 federal employees who now cannot be fired by DOGE if they don't come to work in the office. So the politics is already in motion,
yes.
and it's going to take a long time. Just curious, did you have a read of the COVID inquiry that came out of the US around
Oh,
COVID? Was there anything on vaccine injuries and things like that?
so no, I haven't read it. It came out about 4 days ago. I've done a little bit
Yes.
of posting based on some of the summaries.
Yeah.
I think I put 4 posts up, but I've been looking at the summary of the New Zealand COVID response, which is a huge 715 pages. So I haven't started looking at the American one yet, but I'm going to. Now, what did I post around that? There were a few things that I posted. I can't even think what it was now. That there was one of the things I posted was it was the Senate inquiry report. It's a 2-year Senate inquiry into the COVID response in America.
Yeah.
One of the things that I posted was they have concluded that there was no effect of the vaccines in preventing people from getting COVID and transmitting it. So that's one of
Okay.
their findings.
Okay. Yeah. And the other one was that that it did come from a lab.
Oh, yes, that was the other. That was a big one, right? Yes, thank you for reminding me. That irrefutably,
Did it
came
say
from
which
the-
lab it came from? Was it Wuhan, or what did it, because there's a lot of talk about it came from Ukraine, or there's Ukraine, there's biolabs.
I'm 90% sure they said the Wuhan lab.
Oh, yes, you're right. Yeah.
because that was the one that was working on coronavirus.
What have you learned so far from the New Zealand report, the phase 1 inquiry of COVID-19?
So, like I say, I haven't read it. I've read a few reviews, and I've started reading the section on vaccination and mandates. And, it's kind of disappointing, but it's not quite as much of a whitewash as I was expecting, because lots of us had real concerns about the head commissioner for phase 1 inquiry, Tony Blakely, who was handpicked by Jacinda Ardern, who also set the terms of reference for phase 1, very, very narrow terms of reference. So our concerns were that he had a lot of ties with pharma. He had worked with Moderna on contracts previously around the Moderna vaccination. And of course, he was a key advisor in the Melbourne, the Victorian COVID response that hugely advocated for forced vaccination and lockdowns, etc. So therefore, that felt like a very compromising choice for a commissioner for our inquiry coming from that background. So it's not as hard hitting as I would have hoped.
Yeah.
I suspect phase 2 is going to be a lot more critical and hard hitting of the response. They do, however, acknowledge, I think his word was, a very significant minority of the New Zealand population has sustained great harm and ongoing harm from vaccination mandates. So he somehow, from the skim read I've done and even reading the section on vaccines in phase 1, they've managed to do a whole inquiry where they haven't alluded even once, not even one sentence that I'm aware of, where they talk about vaccine injury.
Yeah.
That wasn't in the terms of reference, so it gave them the get out of jail free card to not refer to it in any way, shape or form in phase 1. The big takeaway for me is that, the things I'm not happy about is they've talked about, we need to do some more work and some more analysis and think carefully about how we apply vaccine mandates next time.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that wasn't the take-home message I was hoping for.
Yeah.
Right.
How do we deceive the people better next time?
But what they do say, the thread that comes through a lot of the different sections, is that the governmental overreach in the way of extensive lockdowns and vaccine mandates, the governmental overreach has caused massive societal schisms. breaks in the fabric of society,
Yep.
othering, division. And that as a result of that governmental overreach, large parts of New Zealand, they've lost social license with. In other words, you can do those kind of things with a country when the country trusts the government to be doing it all in the best interest of the country. The COVID response, hundreds of thousands, potentially millions of New Zealanders have woken up to the fact that they no longer feel the same. They no longer trust the government implicitly, and the media and the Ministry of Health. So what Blakely is saying in phase 1 of the review is that those overarching impositions on people's lives where they were controlled, where they lost their human rights, they lost the Bill of Rights, the right to say no to a medical intervention, the right to move freely in society. We lost those rights. That has taken away the social license. We no longer trust the government in the same way as we did 5 years ago. So if/when the next pandemic arrives and they pull out that card to do it all again, Blakely's saying, we're in for some problems. People aren't just going to comply like they did last time.
Yeah, and the alarming and the troubling thing, I had a lawyer on my show, and we talked about this in terms of, was there any abuse from the government in overreach and the Bill of Rights, and because we don't have a constitution in New Zealand, which I learned. And
I learned too.
And he said no, they did not do anything legally wrong. And so when I hear Luxon talk about it, he says, well, if it happens again, we won't do this much overreach because the public doesn't have an appetite for it. I'm like, okay, but this is a very unusual way for a democracy to run.
Yeah.
The democracy should have we the people have the rights. And so why don't we, from this COVID inquiry, say one of the things we need to do is institutional innovation, institutional change, and we need to remove some of the power from the government, and we need to have a lesser government, and we give more power to the people so that if there is an overreach, the people can fight back.
Yeah.
That's why in America you have the Second Amendment, because if the government decides to do something silly, the people can bear arms and they can stand up for themselves and they can fight. That's the Constitution. So why not we have from these inquiries, one of the many things that we can do better is not deceiving people better and not doing overreach just because people doesn't have the appetite for it, but we hold the power as a parliament. We actually, have a smaller parliament. Why don't we have a smaller parliament? We can't have a Senate like Canada does because Canada is 35 million people. We're 5 million people, or maybe a bit more. Then why don't we have a smaller parliament? Why don't we have a constitution for the people? Why can't people have more rights to stand for themselves? Why don't we make it illegal for you to have mandates on people? None of that stuff is coming out. Maybe that's phase 2. I don't know the details of these. But I'd like to see that real change happen, not just that next time we'll do it again, but we'll trick you better and we'll make sure it's lesser of an impact.
Yeah, that is the feeling I walk away from phase 1 of the inquiry about, because it was as a non-adversarial inquiry. There's no legal ramifications in terms of people being hauled before judges and going to prison. It was not transparent in the way that, there was a live stream into the room with interviews, and we can't access much of the many of the submissions are under permanent OIA exemption, so you can't access them. And I understand that. For example, we submitted a huge submission, almost 1,500 pages long, the Health Forum NZ, and with the exception of the first 10 pages that I wrote as a prologue, preview, the rest of it was all reports I'd received from people. It was all mandated out, medical exemption declined reports that New Zealanders, and so that is confidential information that I've shared. So I requested that go under a permanent embargo so that people can't OIA that private information, and they've done that.
Yeah.
The important thing is the Commission needed to see the reality. And so now for phase 2, I will be giving a lot of sensitive information to phase 2 as well.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know we've gone well over our time limit.
I can't believe how long I've talked for.
Yeah, I'd love to keep carrying on, but I don't want to be rude. Is there anything you want to share? Anything you want to talk about that you haven't covered that you would love to cover?
Can I maybe just do a bit of a rah-rah for what we're doing to encourage people to contact us?
Yeah, you can share your accounts, your socials. I have no
Great.
time restriction. You can just speak as much as you like.
Great. Okay. All right. So we'll cut that bit out. And thanks, Adnan. It's been amazing being on your podcast. I've really enjoyed it. I know it's a long time coming. You've been a long time chasing me around, trying to pin me down to this date. But I've really enjoyed talking to you. And I love this long form podcast because it means that nobody can talk in sound bites. You have to reveal who you are when you talk for 2.5 hours. You're not scripted. You're just who you are, right? So it's revealing doing it this way. Thank you for inviting me to tell your listeners about where they can find us. So we are the Health Forum NZ. Our website is thehealthforumnz.co.nz. And on Facebook, you'll find us as True Stories from the Health Forum NZ. We're also on Telegram as the Health Forum NZ. And on X, our account is called NZ and the mRNA, as in the jab. NZ and the mRNA. My Twitter handle, I don't even know, is it at HopeRising19, I think it is. So come join us. If you're vax injured and you've only just discovered us, please email us, the Health Forum NZ at protonmail.com. We can guide you in terms of ACC resources, practitioners to help you recover. We can give you some support. So, please reach out to us. We're still working. We're still here. Thank you.
Amazing. I enjoy your content on X every single day. I'm so appreciative that people like yourself and many others that are out there in the community being on the right side of history and just being, good citizen human beings that are making sure that we protect our democracy, we provide good information, we help people, we care for people. This is what we expect from governments, institutions, society, community. So I can't thank you enough and the time that you've shared with me today. So thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, Adnan. Maybe just one comment as we wind up that just came to me then. I often like to finish with this because the things I talk about are quite despairing things. Vaccine injured people listening to me, it's not like I can say, well, we found the cure for everyone. I'd love to be able to, but I have to tell the truth. So just what I would say is that I feel hopeful about what is coming because all around the world, people are rising. People power is rising. Communities are realizing there is insurmountable strength in coming together, and demanding rights, demanding human rights and farmers' rights. I mean, just look at what's happening in Europe. So I think that the vibration of the earth is changing. If you have any spiritual leanings or religious, I feel within my soul very, very deeply that we are on the cusp of massive changes to humankind in terms of how our societies are structured and human rights and all kinds of things. And what we're in right now is the implosion. We're in the darkness right now with, it's been oppressed. Now the lid's coming off and the truth is going to come out. There's going to be chaos and mayhem, I believe, as lots of structures that have stood unquestioned, haven't been questioned, like the whole structure of, the Holy Grail of vaccinology. As truth comes out, there's going to be chaos and maelstrom. But the other side of that, I believe we're on track for something So exciting. I mean, I'm just getting zapped saying that. So
Yeah.
exciting. I don't know whether, I think you're a lot younger than me. I don't know whether I'll be here to be a part of it, but I feel very grateful that I incarnated at this time, and this has been my soul journey this time round. I don't know if there's another time round. This has been my soul journey.
Yeah.
So I guess what I'm saying is keep the hope. More and more people are awakening. More and more people are understanding the power of human connection, of truth, of standing in your truth, of compassion, of loving each other. More and more people are awakening to the things that stand between us and that becoming a reality. And that is autocratic government processes, that is bought and paid for media, that is corrupt big pharma. So we're awakening to those truths. And what's coming, I believe, is going to be beautiful. So I
Yeah,
just
I think so too. I think so too. Just this explosion and implosion. Even just 2025, it's gonna be like amazing because there's just more and more gonna come out. And as much as we hate the mainstream media in New Zealand and they're a dying breed, we have these podcasts. We have video podcasts, and I'm building a permanent studio now, and I'm gonna
wow.
keep having guests again and again and again on my show, and I'd love to have you come back again and again and again whenever
Oh,
you
thank
have
you.
stuff to talk about. And I think it's going to be a regular thing, and it's something that I'll do for the next 20, 30 years.
How
and,
exciting
and
that
and
is.
so there's a lot of people doing lots of great things in New Zealand, around the world, and this whole movement of truth and citizen journalism and people wanting to be part of it. And I think you're going to be part of it for many, many years to come. And it's super exciting. And again, once again, thank you so much for coming